One of the most ingenious aspects of the Constitution is the principle of separation of powers. Previously, the king of a nation would decree laws, enforce them, and act as supreme judge all at the same time, which has led to countless abuses of government. Basically, the separation of powers is the segregating of the major functions of government into independent bodies that act as checks and balances on each other. The three branches of government are legislative, that is, lawmaking, which is Congress, consisting of the House of Representatives and the Senate; the executive, the presidency; and judicial, federal courts, including the Supreme Court. By separating these aspects of government and making them independent of each other, the Constitution seeks to preserve the freedom of the individual by not allowing excessive power or domination to the government. Founder John Adams was the great proponent of the separation of powers. Regarding this principle, he said, "The legislative, executive, and judicial powers shall be placed in separate departments, to the end that it might be a government of laws and not of men." One of the most destructive innovations undermining the separation of powers are executive orders. These are mandates signed by the President, who is the executive of the nation, and which for all intents and purposes become law. But according to the Constitution, all lawmaking power of the federal government is vested in Congress, and Congress alone. Therefore, for the executive branch of the government to make laws is totally unconstitutional and gives the President the power of a king. Executive orders have been issued by both Republican and Democrat presidents alike. It doesn't matter who did it. It is always wrong in principle and an affront to the Constitution. Basic to the theory behind the Constitution and woven throughout its paragraphs and clauses is the idea of not centralizing too much authority in one level of government, particularly the federal government. As W. Cleon Skousen noted, the founders emphasized repeatedly that the design of the Constitution was to distribute authority of governmental service to that level where a particular function could be most efficiently administered and at the least expense. Thomas Jefferson put the idea into words very effectively in this way: "The way to have good and safe government is not to trust it all to one, but to divide it among the many, distributing to everyone exactly the functions he is competent to. Let the national government be entrusted with the defense of the nation and its foreign and federal relations, the state governments with the civil rights, laws, police, and administration of what concerns the state generally, the counties with the local concerns of the counties, and each ward direct the interests within itself. It is by dividing and subdividing these republics from the great national one down through all its subordinations until it ends in the administration of every man's farm by himself, by placing under everyone what his own eye may superintend, that all will be done for the best." Unfortunately, the trend today is the centralization of authority in the federal government, with that level of government undertaking all kinds of powers and responsibilities that do not rightly belong to it. This is not the philosophy of the Founding Fathers, nor is it conducive to the proper interpretation of the Constitution, but rather centralization of government is the mark of tyranny. It is no coincidence that a basic tenet of freedom-destroying socialism and communism is the deliberate centralization of government authority. It is also no coincidence that liberals are doing their part to push the trend towards centralization of government, for liberals are the unofficial allies of the socialists. That is because the unconstitutional concentration of power and authority in the federal government is necessary for collectivists to administer their overgrown government programs. Thomas Jefferson gravely warned of these hazards that would destroy freedom. He said, When all government, domestic and foreign, in little as in great things, shall be drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will render powerless the checks provided of one government on another, and will become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated. Another great truth of the inspired Constitution is that, like it or not, it is indeed based on a free market capitalist system. Of course, this is nothing to be ashamed of or concerned about, since free enterprise with a minimum of government controls is God's plan for the prosperity of His children. As W. Cleon Skousen noted, by the end of the 19th century, the founders' formula was beginning to give Americans the highest standard of living in the world. With less than 6% of the Earth's population, they were producing more than half of just about everything. This was all made possible because Americans had a constitution which allowed them to be the first nation to practice the free market principles set forth in a famous book by Adam Smith entitled The Wealth of Nations. Milton Friedman said the following in regards to the success of capitalism and its magnificent effect on the general welfare of people. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't conduct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the grinding poverty, the only cases in recorded history, are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it is exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that, so that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way, so far discovered, of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system. Many people fault capitalists for being greedy because they are seemingly always trying to labor for more. First of all, there is nothing preventing a capitalist from being generous, and many are. And while greed is certainly wrong, there is nothing wrong with prosperity. But it is socialism itself which represents a whole other and baser kind of greed, the desire to take something for nothing, an unholy sense of entitlement to the goods and property of other hard-working men. Which greed is worse? The kind that involves hard work and contribution to society and the economy, or the kind that seeks to prosper without work? The Lord has said, "Woe unto you poor men, whose hearts are not broken, whose spirits are not contrite, and whose bellies are not satisfied, and whose hands are not stayed from laying hold upon other men's goods, whose eyes are full of greediness, and who will not labor with your own hands." Is it greed to allow people to enjoy what they labored hard for? Or is it greed to forcefully take another's money, having done nothing to merit it? We should understand very clearly what capitalism is, for it is often grossly misrepresented. Capitalism is the freedom to venture, profit, and enjoy the fruits of one's labors, competition without special favors or bailouts. Capitalism is not redistribution of wealth to the rich, special alliances between business and government, the pillaging of the masses. This does not describe capitalism at all. These things are totally subversive to capitalism. Rather, this sort of union between government and big business is a manifestation of corporatism, and is a collectivist phenomenon of the fascist variety. Regarding the principles of free market capitalism, Ezra Taft Benson taught, Today it seems evident that we are rearing a generation of Americans who do not understand the productive base of our society and how we came by such prosperity. Evidence of this fact is found in surveys taken among some of our high school and college students, the majority of whom, it is reported, believe private enterprise is a failure, although they don't have a clear understanding of what private enterprise is. With them, as with many adults, there is a vague notion that it is some unfair system that tends to give special advantage to big corporations and wealthy individuals. I ask, where are the exponents of the free market today? Who is speaking out for the philosophy and system that has brought about America's greatness and prosperity? You will not find free market exponents among the majority in the halls of Congress, nor in government bureaucracies, nor in labor, the pulpit, or the classroom. Paradoxically, they are not any more heard among the majority of businessmen. Many businessmen kowtow to the power of governmental regulatory agencies. Others have their hand out to the federal trough. The platforms of the two great political parties in our land are contradictory to a free man's political and economic philosophy. The majority party is unabashedly pro-collectivist. The minority party offers a more gradual interventionism as an alternative. The free market system rests on a moral base. Without the moral base to our system, we are no better off than other nations that are now sunk into oblivion. If we are to remain under heaven's benign protection and care, we must return to those principles which have brought us our peace, liberty, and prosperity. Our problems today are essentially problems of the spirit.